I know you, you know me. I'm Steve. This is Pathfinder. Today we're going to talk about how to be a truly honest leader. So this is a funny one because actually I've had some people comment or reach out to me and say, like, this doesn't make sense. Like, you're talking about, of course we're honest. And so far I've talked a lot about trust. We've talked about trust, how it's the foundation of the relationship, it's the foundation of the leader-follower relationship, but it's the foundation of all relationships, right? And the leader-follower relationship has a lot of the same foundations of all relationships. So we talked a lot about trust. Obviously, honesty helps a lot with that. Deceit catches up, right? So if you're somebody who lies, somebody who cheats, somebody who tricks or does bad things, it's going to catch up to you. So honesty is going to help build that foundation of trust. So there's the two of you here, but I want to ask you, and you can write it in the comments, do you lie to your followers? Do you lie to your followers? And so while you're thinking about that, or while you're writing it in and there's the delay going back and forth, I've asked this before in leadership sessions, and are you always honest with your people? So when somebody has poor performance, they're not doing what's expected, they're not meeting standards, are you being completely honest with them? And are you being timely with that honesty? What about in performance reviews? Are you being honest during performance reviews, or are you pulling some punches? Are you pulling some punches just generally overall when you see how your people are performing, how they're working? So even that is a slice of dishonesty, right? If you're seeing, so not conscious, not intentionally. So yeah, I think sometimes, we don't want to hurt feelings. We don't want to be the nag. We see something and say, it's not that bad, I'm going to let it slide. But the reality is that's still dishonesty. And when we look at the workplace today, right, we're hearing about a lot of trust issues. Obviously, the Great Resignation, which has been going on now for about 2 years, where it's the highest level of turnover in companies, where people are switching jobs. And employees are starting to do what companies have done for a really long time, which is they're looking out for number one. They're looking out for themselves. And they're saying, I'm not going to be loyal to the company, because when the company needs to cut heads, I might be one of those heads. So I'm going to look out for me, and I'm going to go get the most. And so it's leading to a worse workplace. It's leading to less ideal conditions to work in. You might have heard about quiet quitting. This is like the hot trend right now. It's the hot topic. Everybody's talking about quiet quitting. Quiet quitting's been around for a long time. If you don't know what quiet quitting is, it's basically people staying in their jobs, but reducing how much they work. Now, there's some different takes on this. Some people are saying, well, they're just working to the level of what's expected. They're not going above and beyond. Well, and I think that there is no obligation to go above and beyond. That's where the leader comes in, right? That's where you inspire people to go above and beyond. So even that does speak to a certain level of lack of leadership in organizations when people are saying, yeah, I'm not going above and beyond. But there's more than that. There's those who are saying, I'm going to work to the level that I feel I'm being compensated for. I'm going to work to the level that I feel I deserve to work based on the way I'm being treated. And so you'll have people who are really slacking off, really not putting in the effort. And this comes from, in large part, a lack of trust. And so people are tired of being lied to, and they know that they've been lied to by their leaders. So you look at it in many different spheres, right? So let's just take the political sphere. People don't trust politicians. And, every politician, no matter what your stripes are, you follow a politician, when they say stuff, there's this like, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Because politicians are known to make promises and then not follow them. They're going to say promises to get elected, and then once in government, not necessarily do it. So people don't trust government anymore, which has led to a lot of issues that we've seen over the last 2 years with the pandemic and so on, right? So there's that lack of trust, which leads to apathy at the polls and so on and so forth. There's also the lack of trust in organizations. Like I said, Great Resignation, quiet quitting are just two examples, but there's others. Decreased productivity, higher rates of burnout. And this has a lot to do with, yes, we've gone through a lot over the last couple of years, but it also has to do with employees being in workplaces where and I hear this all the time, where the bosses aren't being honest. They're not being forthcoming. They're not being transparent. A lot of times I hear about people who are working in organizations, they get great performance reviews, everything's going well, and then all of a sudden they say things like, then my boss stopped talking to me. And I noticed there was like a difference. And I started getting worried because why would my boss stop talking to me? What did I do? And then when I would ask them, hey, what did I do wrong? I would get an answer, no, everything's fine. Everything's great. No, you're great. Everything's awesome. Only to find out that, in some cases I've heard people didn't get their bonuses because their employers were unhappy with their performance, or in other cases, people get terminated, even though everything leading up to that pointed to them being good. So again, that can lead to a lot of stress in someone's life. That can lead to, of course, a lack of trust towards organizations. And so this is why I wanted to do this one, okay? I've seen it in my career where there are managers who are super, super nice and hey, everything's okay. But meanwhile, they're like, I hate this person. And I've been on both sides. I've been on the side where, as an HR director, people coming to me and saying, I gotta get rid of this guy. I'm like, okay, what have you communicated to this employee that their performance, conduct, attendance is not meeting standards? What have you communicated? And there's nothing. Oh, well, we had a conversation. You had a conversation. Conversation doesn't lead to termination. Conversation leads to another conversation, maybe one that's a little bit more serious. But so those are cases that I've seen as an HR director where managers are not being forthcoming. They're not being transparent, or basis of this session, they're not being honest, right? So they're withholding all this. They're just trying to be nice and they're smiling. And I had a boss once who called it grin effing, right? They grin F you where they smile, but behind their smile, they're giving you the fingers. So that's kind of what these managers were doing to their employees. I've also seen it as an employee where, performance reviews great. Boss is saying, hey, you're doing amazing. And then only to find out that, well, we really, we're going to take this away because we weren't happy with the way it was being done. Well, hang on a second. Nobody ever told me that. I would have changed. I would have tried to adapt. I even asked if things were meeting your expectations, and the answer was yes. So the opportunity was there, but in the guise of niceness, they avoided giving honest feedback. No, we got to be nice. Well, being nice often equals deceit. It often equals lying. So how can you be truly honest as a leader? So I've got a list for you. We've got 7 things you can do to make you a truly honest leader. And the first one, very simple. You won't hear this in most other leadership learnings, and that is don't be a psychopath. Pretty simple. Don't be a psychopath. Now you might be saying, hang on, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it does. And so I'm going to give you some examples in the corporate world where the leaders of these businesses acted a little bit like psychopaths. Volkswagen, I'm going to say it's probably about 10 years ago now, got caught, and they were the victim. Not really a victim. I'm going to take that back. They were caught by the regulators because there was a whistleblower. So there was somebody inside the company that revealed the fact that they were faking their emissions. They had changed the software in their cars to register lower emissions than they were actually putting out, so that they can say, hey, look at us. We're doing all this and it's really good, and they get a higher rating so they can sell more cars on the basis that their cars were more environmentally friendly than they were. And they did this for profit. It wasn't for the profit of the employees. It was definitely not to the profit of the customer. It was to the profit of the shareholders and the executives. The executives who at the time were banking millions of dollars of bonuses. So they acted like psychopaths. They knew it, and they said, hey, we're going to fake this in order to make more money. There's another really popular or really well-known example of this at HSBC, right? It's a bank, and while they were, have cameras on their employees to make sure they're not taking any money from the cash, from the till, from the drawer, they were laundering money for terrorists and drug organizations, the cartels. And so psychopaths, they were helping these international criminals launder their money while telling their employees to be honest and be respectful and be ethical and make sure they don't steal and all that. So Again, this is about just pure profit, putting profit above everything, not really dealing with or caring for their customers or their employees. And then the same thing with, in my opinion, recent layoffs, where you've seen top executives make $1 million in bonuses, yet they lay off thousands or hundreds of employees under the pretense of we need to save money. And so all of this, rule number one, if you want to be a truly honest leader, don't be a psychopath. Don't put profit above everything, including your own honesty and ethics. Number two, accept your vulnerability. Accepting vulnerability, very important. So what does this mean? We hear a lot about this in leadership. If you followed other people who talk about leadership, Brene Brown and so on, they're going to talk a lot about vulnerability. So what does it mean? Well, you haven't always succeeded. You've made mistakes. You fail. You come up short. These are all things that we all do. We're all human. And so we need to show that side to our people as well. We can't always be, perfect, strong, winning, the best. Because when you only present that one side of, hey, I'm doing really good and I'm, I've always won and here are all my successful stories and I don't make mistakes. Well, all of that, eventually, like I said, deceit catches up to everyone. Eventually, your people are going to say, no, that can't be. I'm seeing that you didn't do that so well. And so the leader that will often only want to present the positives, they won't show any of the things they do wrong, those are the leaders that are going to hide the things that they do wrong because they don't want the truth to be out there. They want to show themselves to be so good, so strong, so that people can respect them and follow them. But this isn't real life. And so for you as the leader, accept your vulnerability and show that side. Show the side that, when I started out, this was really tough. Whatever it is that you're doing, whatever company you're in, it's going to be tough. Starting out always is. Always is. So it's okay to show that side. It's okay to show that you've made mistakes and failed. In fact, it's more than okay. It's necessary if you want your people to try, to push, and to make mistakes when they're doing that. Because if they're afraid to make mistakes because you never make any mistakes, well, guess what? They're not going to try because they don't want to make mistakes. Or worse, they're going to lie when they do. And so you'll have a team of people lying based on the example that you set as a leader. So the second way you can be a truly honest leader is accept your vulnerability and show it. Set the example that, hey, we don't always win. We're not always right. And when we aren't, we show that, we accept it, and we learn from it. Number three, provide constant feedback. This will make your job a lot easier in being honest. So provide constant feedback for the good and the bad. There are a lot of leaders who either don't provide constant feedback. They'll see things and not say things. Now remember, the standard you walk past is the standard that you set. All right, this is from Michael G. Moore, and he makes a great point. If you see something wrong and you walk past it because you want to be nice and you don't want to be honest, well, what you're basically communicating to that person is that's okay, that's acceptable, and that becomes a standard. So for you, you need to say something. And so for the leaders who don't say anything, they set lower and lower standards, and the people begin to lack accountability. Now, the other side of that is I've seen a lot of leaders who only focus on the negative. They're looking for the things that are going wrong so that, because in their mind, they're like, well, that's what I need to improve. And they're not wrong in that. We do want to mention the negatives. We do want to say, hey, what you're doing there, not exactly how I want it to be done. Let me show you how it can be. All right. So we want to correct. However, if we only focus on the negatives, people will eventually tune you out because they'll say, it's like I do nothing right here. So you need to balance the two. When you see it, say it. So if you see them doing something right, and it could be something as basic as showing up to work on time. Now I've had people say, well, that's expected of them. Why would I say it? It is expected of them, but they can also show up late. So if somebody showed up on time, if you're in a position where them showing up on time is important, why not say, thank you for showing up on time, I appreciate it. Don't you appreciate it? So communicate that. Communicate the good and communicate the bad. Provide constant feedback. Now, how does this make it easier for you in the long run? It makes it easier because you're no longer building up a laundry list of things that then, how am I going to communicate all this? Right? If you got a laundry list of things that they've done wrong, well, that's really bad day for that person when you're going to have to say, hey, we need to sit down and have a talk. I've got about 40 things I need to tell you that you're doing wrong. For one, that's unfair. But two, the person might not even know what you're talking about because time has passed. Which brings us to number 4, which is be timely. So providing constant feedback, good and bad, and be timely in it. Sometimes you can't give that feedback right away, but you want to make it and you want to give that feedback as soon as possible. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. So the longer you wait, the longer that list gets, and the more unfair it becomes to communicate. And the harder it is for that person to really understand what you're talking about. So be timely, provide constant feedback. Now keep in mind, if you do performance reviews, whether it be annual or biannual, the last thing you want is to not give any feedback, right? And then, oh, here we go. It's that time of year again. You don't remember, they don't remember. And so that's why a lot of performance reviews fail, is because it's the time of the year where we provide feedback. Really, you should be providing feedback timely and consistently, noting it down, so when you get to the performance appraisal, it's no longer a surprise. It's now a discussion of, hey, here are all the things. Let's just review some of these and let's see how we improve to move forward. So, recapping, because there's some more people joining in. So far we've covered 4 ways to be a truly honest leader. Number 1, don't be a psychopath. Think of your people, serve your people. Don't put profits and your ego above it all. Okay, don't be a psychopath. Serve your people. 2, accept your vulnerability. You make mistakes, you have failed, you have struggled. Communicate that side of your story as well, along with your successes. 3, provide constant feedback, both good and bad. And number 4, make sure your feedback is timely, as opposed to allowing a laundry list of items to dump onto your follower. Number 5, prioritize respect over niceness. Now, this doesn't mean you should not be nice to your staff or not be nice to your followers. Au contraire, you want to be nice and you want to be respected. And the two do go hand in hand, but by prioritizing respect, it means that when you see something, you don't walk past it because you say, oh, it might make them feel bad. It might. So if you know that it might make them feel bad, why not tailor your approach? Make it, think about what you're going to say and make it so that it's productive. So as opposed to just saying, that's wrong, you need to fix it, and walking away, how about saying, hey, I see what you're doing there. That's not exactly how I explained it. Tell me about it. Why don't we talk about this? And let me see the way you've understood it, because it could be that they've just understood it wrong and it's going to be a quick fix. Or maybe they found a better way. And by talking to them and then getting to, all right, so this is the standard. Here's how you're doing it. There's a gap here. How do we bridge that gap? Okay. So prioritize respect over niceness. Remember that honesty equals respect. Niceness equals lying. So if you're always prioritizing niceness, you're going to lie. You're going to not want to say the negative things. And like Mary just wrote in the comments, lying is not nice, right? So we've often been in this society, and I've seen this a lot at workplaces, where the person who is direct and open with their staff, well, they often get the bad rap for being the a-hole. And that's often given by those who don't like working and who are often being told, hey, there's something that needs to be fixed here. They might have had a boss before that who never said anything, so that was great for them. But it was a lie. And so the person who's being super nice, but in the back of their mind is thinking, I got to get rid of them. And just before coming on, I saw a meme where the person was saying, don't like this employee, going to give them the worst shifts and the worst hours, and then they quit. I win. And that is exactly that, nice approach where I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to smile, but I'm going to start working the back channels. I'm going to start being indirect, and I'm really going to do things this passive-aggressive way of dealing with performance. Well, like I said, that causes stress, it causes problems, and it decreases the trust that people have in their leader. So by being honest, you are going to deal with the problem. You can tailor your approach to make sure that it's a little bit easier for the person. Again, we want to achieve 2 goals, which is going to be our next thing. But by being honest, you have a chance to improve the situation. You have a chance to correct the problem. By being nice, you're not correcting the problem. It's only going to get worse. You're just kicking the can down the road. Number 6, remember the 2 goals of performance management. The 2 goals of performance management are simple. Solve the problem, maintain the relationship. Those are the 2 right there. Solve the problem, maintain the relationship. So how do you solve the problem? Well, you deal with it. You open it up, you shine light on it. And by shining light on it, if it's a mistake or if it's a failure, shining light, but it not being the end of the world, your staff will respect that, your followers will respect that and say, okay, so I had a performance issue, but the walls and ceiling didn't fall down on me. My leader worked with me to improve, which helps maintain the relationship, right? We've dealt with the issue in a way that's about the issue, not about you as a person, not about you as a follower. As your leader, we are going to look at the issue because that's what I need to solve. That's what we need to solve. And that alone is enough to maintain the relationship, especially if we approach it as leaders with a problem-solving mentality, not an attack on the person. Going back to being nice, often being nice ends up being an attack on the person, right? Like I said, as HR director, I'd often have managers come to me and say, I gotta get rid of this person, I can't take them anymore. And that would lead to them blowing up. It's led to, people being fired like that, which leads to litigation. So that is, that's why we run into problems as leaders. However, if we're honest, we're straightforward, and we're remembering, I just got to solve the problem, but I need to maintain the relationship. Especially if you're working in an industry, which most industries are now, where you're lacking employees or it's hard to find good talent, you have to preserve that relationship as much as possible. And so the key and the priority has to be solve the problem, which is not the person. In most cases, it's going to be the issue. Deal with the issue. Maintain the relationship. And the last one, number 7, is remember the golden rule. Remember the golden rule. And if you don't know what the golden rule is, it's something that is super important in leadership, which is do unto others as you would want done to you. So would you want your bosses smiling and telling you everything's okay? Meanwhile, in the back, they're thinking, we got to get rid of this guy. We got to find somebody to replace them. But no, keep doing what you're doing. Not giving you the feedback, not giving you the information that would allow you to improve. Is that what you would want? Probably not. So if you don't want that done to you, don't do that to your followers. How would you want to be treated? In most cases, everybody who's honest about this would say, well, I would want to know. I would want to have the opportunity to either explain myself or improve, correct the problem. So if that's what you would want, why not do the same for others? And so those are the 7. Number 1, don't be a psychopath. Serve your people, put your people first. Number 2, accept your vulnerabilities. Present both sides of your story, your successes and your failures, your strengths and your weaknesses. Show both sides because it will set the right example. Provide constant feedback, both good and bad, and make sure it's timely. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. Number 5, prioritize respect over niceness. Eventually, we're going to do a session about nice organizations and how they are super toxic environments. For now, just remember, honesty equals respect. Niceness equals lying. So, that's number 5. Number 6, remember the 2 goals of performance management. Solve the problem, maintain the relationship. And number 7, remember the golden rule, which is do to others that you would want done to you. And I'm going to leave you with this. Remember that only the weak need to lie. The strong are courageous. They don't need to hide behind the lies. They can be honest and open and give you that truthful feedback. The weak, they need to lie. They need to build stories. They need to hide behind a smile. But the strong have the courage to give the truth. Thanks a lot. I'm Steve Karagulis with Pathfinder. I hope you enjoyed this session. If you did, like and share. And we'll see you again, not next week. I'm on vacation next week, but we'll see you in 2 weeks with another live leadership talk. Take care, everybody.